Welcome back. Russia yesterday launched its largest attack on Ukraine in months. The drone and missile attack targeted Ukraine's energy infrastructure across the country. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the Kremlin was able to launch a total of about 120 missiles and 90 drones, with 66 of them able to reach their targets. A Russian strike on a 9-story building in northern Ukraine killed at least 11 people, including 2 children. That's according to Ukrainian officials. Multiple electrical substations that power Ukraine's nuclear power plants were also hit yesterday, but the plants themselves were not directly damaged. Joining us now, former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, retired 4-star Navy Admiral James Stavridis. He is Chief International Analyst for NBC News. Admiral, good to see you this morning. So this wave of attacks, deadly and widespread, comes just as President Biden has done an about-face, and it will now permit Ukraine to use U.S.-made missiles deep within Russia itself, in part, U.S. officials say, because of those North Korean troops that have been added to the battle. Give us your assessment here of the president's decision and what appears to be Russia's response.
Let's start with the big attack that just occurred that you highlighted, Jonathan. And what concerns me is the percentage that got through. Think about the strikes by Iran on Israel. Those have only gotten 1 or 2% of missiles actually hitting targets anywhere in the state of Israel. Here, according to the numbers that you relayed, and I have also heard from my sources, probably a third, maybe more, maybe 35%, 40% of these missiles and drones got through. Very concerning. Second key point, going after critical infrastructure, notably the electric grid, as winter really draws on, attempting to kind of crack the morale of the Ukrainian people. I don't think it'll work, but it's a sign of where Putin is going to try and go. Now we come on to why, and I think it is in response to the addition of North Korean troops. Putin has added those. Therefore, Biden has released the long-range ATACMs missiles, 200 miles, can go after critical targets. I think we should have done it months ago, if not a year or so ago. But you see things accelerating, frankly, as we head toward an inauguration in the United States in January, which will impact all of this.
Yeah, and that's exactly, Admiral, where I wanted to go next. You know, with Trump looming, and there's certainly a wide-held belief that he will not be nearly as supportive to Kyiv as the Biden administration. How do we think that plays out? It certainly seems that the U.S. right now is trying to do as much as it can to help Ukraine before January 20th. But how do you think Russia is going to view this? What tactics may it change?
I think Russia will amp up the number of North Koreans in this fight because their losses, Russia's, are so significant. They are losing 1,000 or more young Russian male troops every single week. That's a big number, even for a country with a population of 145 million. So look for more North Koreans to come in. Look additionally for a pushback by Russia and North Korea to retake the small salient, about 500 square miles, that Ukraine is holding of Russian territory. And third and finally, what we saw last night, more strikes directed against the population. These really are war crimes. Putin will continue them. He wants to have the strongest possible hand of cards at the negotiating table, because that's probably what the new administration will do. Tell the Ukrainians, go straight to the negotiating table, and hopefully off to the side, sotto voce, to the Russians, will be saying, time to negotiate. Trump will try to put those two sides together. In the meantime, look for a lot of performative violence coming from Vladimir Putin.
Lastly, Admiral, before we let you go, let's circle back to President Biden and his meeting with Xi Jinping of China yesterday, the last time these two men will meet. We know President Biden has said the relationship between Washington and Beijing, the defining one in the century ahead. He's tried to really focus efforts there with some success, despite obviously other things going on in Ukraine and the Middle East. How do you think that relationship stands as D.C. prepares for Trump's return?
President Xi is trying to strengthen his fundamental position vis-a-vis the United States. He outlined a series of so-called red lines for the United States to contemplate. That was all directed, quite obviously, at President Trump, who is bringing some real China hawks into his cabinet, notably Marco Rubio as Secretary of State and Colonel Mike Waltz, a Special Forces officer, as National Security Advisor. Both are China hawks who look very with very clear eyes at China. And so Xi has laid out to the United States his red lines. Do not push us on Taiwan. Do not interfere with our economy. Do not try and interfere in our internal affairs. Push democracy, push human rights. So you're seeing President Xi, I think quite correctly and as usual, quite strategically, send a signal to the incoming administration. It might have been Joe Biden sitting there. That message was directed at Donald Trump.
Yeah, no question there. We really appreciate the analysis this morning, and we hope to speak to you again soon. Retired 4-star Navy Admiral James Stavridis. Admiral, thank you as always.